Hi friends, today we're talking about the buck effect, what it is, why it happens, and why we didn't see it in our meat goat herd this year. I'm walking you through my thought process evaluating why it didn't happen, how it has affected our kidding season, and what that means for our goat herd. Let's get to it.
Hey friends, welcome to the Get Goatwise podcast. Are you longing to raise goats and other animals for food but don't know where to start? Do you want to be more self-sufficient and less dependent on the grocery store? Do you wish you had a mentor to walk you through raising livestock? Hi, I'm Millie, animal scientist, cattle girl turned goat rancher, co-owner of Dry Creek Livestock, and simple living enthusiast. For 15 years, I've been on a mission to raise all of our own meat, eggs, and dairy. Here, we'll talk about raising goats and other homestead livestock, how to create sustainable animal management systems that actually work, and a bit of off-grid life with kids and livestock. If you're ready to take control of your food supply, raise livestock with confidence, and provide your family with the most nourishing meat, eggs, and dairy available, you're in the right place. Kick off your muck boots, pour a cup of coffee, and let's talk livestock.
Hey friend, do you want to hang out with like-minded folks who are also interested in raising their own livestock and seeking self-sufficiency? Inside the free Raising Goats and Homestead Livestock community, you'll get tips on raising goats and other livestock and ideas to increase your self-sufficiency. Join now at getgoatwise.com/community. You can also become an insider and get weekly emails from me with the latest podcast episode, tips on raising goats and other livestock, real-life information about self-sufficiency and living off-grid, and early bird access to special offers. Sign up at getgoatwise.com/insider. What's happening on the ranch? I don't know for sure, but all evidence is pointing to a weasel that got our Americana chicks. I saw a weasel over here several years ago, but I haven't seen one since, and we've been fortunate that this hasn't happened until now. And I guess that it allowed us to get a little complacent. When we moved the chicken runs, we moved them right to the place I had seen the weasel years before, and I didn't even think about it. Anyway, it's a problem we're gonna have to deal with, but until we get through kidding, the chicks will just stay in the barn. Interestingly, up to this point, the big hens have not been bothered by the weasel at all, and their chicken trailer is right next to the chick run. We are over halfway through kidding. 49 out of 90 does exposed to breeding have kidded, and we have 93 live kids on the ground. We did have 2 losses. Both were in the one set of quads we've had. One died in the sack, meaning the doe didn't get the sack off its head in time after it was born, and the other was a tiny 2.8-pound little fighter, but she wasn't quite developed enough and she didn't make it. We've had 3 sets of triplets and 1 kid that was rejected, so there are 4 kids in the bottle kid pen. In hindsight, we probably could have gotten the doe to take the rejected kid, but we just didn't have the manpower to make it happen. It's a job to get a doe to mother a kid she doesn't want, but we have done it successfully in the past. We just had too many things happening at once, so he went in the bottle kid pen. I'm milking 3 goats once a day, and we're kid sharing for now, so I don't have to milk twice a day. And that's feeding the bottle calves and all 4 bottle kids. One problem I'm seeing this year that we've never had before is ticks on one of the kids. It's actually one of the bottle kids. Our friends have also had ticks on their pigs, which I've never seen before. So I'm wondering what's going on, but I don't really know how to figure it out. I'll be thinking about it and researching that one, and that might be a winter research project. If you're new here, you might not know that I come from a cattle background. I was raised on a big beef cattle operation, and I got my education in animal science and ruminant nutrition. So cows have been my entire life, and I've adapted that knowledge to goats, but sometimes things just don't translate well from cattle to goats. The cows always calved out on range, except when I was really young, when the first calf heifers were brought in to be watched more closely and assisted when needed, and sometimes penned in the barn to mother up. As kids, our after-school job in the spring was to clean pens in the calving barn. There are a lot of stories from those days, but over time, the cattle operation moved more and more to a range calving arrangement, even for the heifers. There was only a small setup of pens in case there was a problem, and the changes in breeding for calving ease made that doable. So, when we started with goats, I drew on the sheep experience I'd had in college, combined with my beef experience, and I looked around at what the local lamb people were doing. And everyone was barn lambing, which means nearly every ewe was brought into what they call a lambing jug inside a barn, which is just a small pen for the ewe and her lambs to bond before going out with the flock. So we did that. We were kidding in April, and the weather can be nasty here, so that was the best plan for what we were doing at the time. When I was trying to figure out the number of pens we'd need, I took the number of does we had and divided that by a 21-day heat cycle to figure out the average, and it came out to 2 or 3 does kidding per day, which meant we'd need 4 to 6 pens to be able to keep them in for 24 to 48 hours. I knew it wouldn't actually work like that, so I made sure we had pens for 8 just in case we had a big day. That first year, the does were all yearlings, and about a week into kidding, a third of the does kidded over a couple days. It's been a while, but I think we had 12 or 14 kid in one day, and it was a bit overwhelming to say the least. We were dividing pens in half and building makeshift pens out of anything we could find to accommodate the rush. The learning curve was very steep those first few years. Typically during kidding, we have a baby boom on days 7 through 10 of kidding, based on the expected due date. That's been the general trend since we started with goats, but this year we're on day 14, and the baby boom didn't happen. Does are kidding pretty steadily about 3 to 6 does every day. So what's going on? The rush of kids born is caused by something we call the buck effect. The buck effect happens when does haven't been around a buck for a long time and they can't see or smell one for a month or two. When the buck is introduced, his pheromones will cause a hormonal response in the does, which triggers ovulation and brings her into estrus or standing heat. This only works on does that are in anestrus, meaning they're not cycling, either because of the season or young does that haven't started cycling yet. This phenomenon can be used by breeders to tighten up their breeding season or bring a group of does into heat all at the same time for artificial insemination. To be used that way, it works best in late summer or early fall. In our case, it happened every year in the show does once we had their nutrition dialed in. The timing was right for the does to be in anestrus. We housed the bucks far away from the does, and it was very effective in getting those goats bred when it really wasn't the right or most fertile season, but that was the timing that was required to raise kids for show. If you want to see an example of the buck effect, there's a reel on my Instagram account at Dry Creek Pastures, and I'll link it in the show notes. It's farm humor, so be aware of that if you go watch it. The buck is wearing a marking harness, and the red on the does came from that. When I posted it, some people were very concerned about the does being covered in red. So, the question is, why didn't we have a baby boom in the commercial meat goats this year? The simple answer is that the does were already cycling. But why were more does cycling this year when they hadn't been in previous years? I don't know the answer for sure, but I think several factors are at play in this situation. Overall nutrition was possibly the biggest factor. The does went into fall in good condition, a bit on the thin side, but nothing severe. We gradually increased feed and condition as temps got colder, and they were in good condition 1 to 2 months before breeding. We were very consistent with mineral. The does only had a few days all fall and winter when the mineral feeders were empty. Mineral plays a critical role in reproduction, so that may have been a big factor. We increased feed 2 weeks before putting the bucks in, but that would have affected ovulation rate and be more of a player in the number of multiples we're having this year rather than directly affecting whether does were cycling or not. Another factor is genetics. We've been selecting does that fit our environment, that kid every year and have multiples, and I think we're really seeing the benefits now. This is a fertile herd of does, and the kidding data so far is showing that. I talk about this a lot, but it's important. We are working with their natural breeding season, the way they were created to reproduce seasonally. So rather than trying to force them to kid out of season, we're working our schedule around their natural tendencies, and I think that's paying off. I'm enjoying this steady, consistent pace of kidding, but even more, I'm excited about what it means. We're getting more in tune with the way the goats function best in nature, and we're creating a herd that is sustainable, productive, and resilient. And that feels pretty darn good. I hope this episode helps you understand the buck effect and factors that play into the fertility and reproductive success of your goats. When you start with the right goats for your environment, work with their natural breeding season, and make sure their nutrition is on point, you'll see their productivity at its very best. See you next week.
Hey there, thanks for listening today. I'm so glad you're here. If this episode helped you or encouraged you in some way, share the link with your homesteading friends. And if you really want to help me out, click on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a rating and a review. You can connect with me on Instagram or email linked in the show notes, and meet me back here soon for more Get Goat Wise.